This work is, something that I make with woods that I collect from the streets. And I live in São Paulo, in Brazil. And in this city, there is a lot of constructions going on all the time. This kind of wood is used to close these construction sites. And it's a kind of wood that is quite cheap. And so instead of using something that's permanent, that's made of plastic or metal, that could be used several times, what happens is that in many cases they use just this cheap kind of wood and they leave it outside so it stays under weather and it gets bad, very fast, like in 2 or in sometimes 6 months they have to change these fences again. So it's a kind of material that you see very often in the city, and it attracted my attention when I was studying fine arts at São Paulo University, and because I was interested in painting, studying the construction of the painting surface, and I started to paint on use plywood as a support for the painting. And I started to collect some plywoods from the street, some used pieces to use as a canvas. And I noticed that this kind of material had some things like broken on the surface. They were all very irregular, and so sometimes they would have some colors on it. And I started to get interested in the support, in not just using it to paint, but also to use it in another way. So I started joining like 2 or 3 pieces of plywood to paint on it, and found out that sometimes when the plywood breaks, it has a shape that reminded me a brush stroke. It's like this. I try an approach that's more focused on the painting and how painting can be transformed into another language, in a three-dimensional language, which I use, where I use a starting point from some kind of oil impasto to create this work like this. So I look at a painting and all the texture of the oil, and I try to transform it in something sculptoric. So it's a kind of process sometimes of taking something that is very small, that's on a canvas, a little piece, and make it big. So in this case, it has this idea of a painting as in 2 ways. There is a painting that's on the material where I have all the textures of the material that I collected from the street, and there is the color that I put on it, which is like a color filter, and as a very diluted acrylic medium that I put on the water, and I spread it on the woods, so it doesn't change the texture, but it changes the color of the material. It's a kind of skeletal system, but it is also made of plywood. So the material is called band board. This material, we didn't ship it from Brazil. It was bought here, and we sliced them in some strips of different sizes, and I joined them, attached them with screws, and so that's how I create the basic shapes. And then I have a first surface, and I add the other layers on it. So the process is also like a painting, because it starts as a kind of structural drawing, and it already has some color that I put on it, and then I go on adding other layers one over the other. So sometimes it's also a way of thinking that is a kind of representation of a painting that is made of something that is on the street, belongs to the world. It's the matter of the world that I'm taking to create something that's based on an idea of a painting. So instead of a painting that represents the world is the matter that makes me represent painting. So I think this is one of the points. So you could speak to people if you want.